Hi, this is Janet Diane Moria Swordlow. I'm happy to be back here with you cooking again. I have actually been spending a lot of time cooking and doing a lot of research while I have been on hiatus for a while. And hopefully I have some new and exciting recipes for you and some new information that is going to help you in many, many ways, because you want to always keep in mind that whatever you eat is representative of what's going into your mind. So with that said, I'm going to start with one of my son's favorite recipes, which is a chicken pot pie. I have here in front of me some chicken breasts. These, as you can see, are still frozen together, slightly frozen, because it's the easiest way to chop them. So I'm just going to chop them into cubes. If you try and do this when it's not frozen, you're going to have a little bit of an issue. You can see how nicely it chops. Now if you want to do things like chicken fingers, which I've shown you how to do chicken breast, you can take this, let it thaw, just gently bread it on both sides with whatever kind of crumbs you like, and anywhere from gluten-free crumbs to chopped up nuts, nut meal, which I have done for you. I, however, am going to turn it into cubes. I like to make, for here in the US, a 9x12 pan, and so that's kind of what I'm going to base my ingredients on today. You can see how easily it chops. Some of you may have noticed that my knife is missing its point. Well, someone gave me this knife and I really like it, and it cuts very well without its point, so I still keep it. I don't know why. I pulled it out of the drawer one day and the point was missing. So we can easily chop it into cubes. And once I have it into cubes, then it's going to go into my frying pan, where I will simmer it with just a little bit of water to cook it through. And from there I will show you how to put together your own chicken pot pie. Now, as you know, I always take a little bit different spin on it than everybody else, and you can do whatever you would like to do and add your own ingredients, add or subtract. It's up to you. I generally use approximately 2 to 3 pounds of chicken breast per 9x12 pie. And it's usually, for the Amish chicken, it takes me about 6 breasts for the amount that I like going into the pie. Okay, you can stop doing it. Okay, you can just go ahead and put this into your pan. And then these are just 3 breasts. I'm going to chop up another 3. And through the magic of the camera, they will automatically appear. So a little bit of water I'm going to pour in to kind of get it going so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And I'm going to let it simmer till they're done. It doesn't usually take very long, maybe somewhere around 15-20 minutes. Okay, now I've gone ahead and put in the other 3 breasts. So we have 6 breasts that are in here simmering, as you can see, and as I told you, it'll take 15-20 minutes to get this cooked thoroughly. While this is happening, I also am going to work on cooking or putting the vegetables for my chicken pot pie in here. Now I have some turnips started, I have some organic carrots and some organic celery. So I'm going to go ahead and just chop some up, and I have a whole group of celery. Let me show you what I have over here in my water bath. Okay, this whole thing is called a stalk of celery. Each individual piece from that stalk is called a rib. So I have right now about 6 ribs and I may decide to add more. I have slit each rib down the middle, and as you can see, I also use all the leaves because there's a lot of good nutrition in there. And that's going to go into my pot. So when my chicken is simmering, I am going to work on this. Now, making chicken pot pie, I will tell you, does take a little bit of time. And if I have too many vegetables, because it takes a while to do the chopping, if I have too many vegetables when I'm all done, then I put them in a container, put them in my freezer for the next time I make a chicken pot pie. I already have some. So same with my carrots. These are organic. I've just they've come out of my water bath, so they're a little discolored, but they're still edible. I've cut them into 4 pieces, and then I just chop that up as well, and that's going to go in. Turn my simmering down here a little bit. Okay, so that's going to go in. I've got a couple more that I will do, but I just want to kind of give you an idea. Now you'll also notice I like to keep the pieces of everything about the same size. It gives it a nice consistency, and when it makes it look nice. These are my turnips. I've taken already these. I've cut them in half, sliced them into pieces like this, and then from there, as I'm showing you, I stack a couple together. And now you can do potatoes, but in the chicken pot pie you really can't tell the difference between the turnips. You can also use rutabagas, any really type of root vegetable, but turnips are one among the low carb. I have used a couple parsnips to add flavor, but they're high in carb. And like I said, you can also do potatoes if you want. So I can add it, because again, we don't want boiling water. So this is melting. I have my yeast, which I've shown you before. I buy it in bulk, instant yeast. You can this here in the U.S. is about $4.60 for a bag like this, and you can refill this jar many times. This usually runs around $6 a bag. And I'm going to put in 3 teaspoons of the dry yeast into my flour. Okay, and this is melting, my honey's melting, my salt is melting, but if I put it too hot, it's going to kill the yeast. So I'm going to fill this up and put a little bit more. I don't want this too cold, it needs to be lukewarm. And of course, I'm going to add a little extra because I've had the honey in there as well. So I'm going to keep it a certain temperature. I'll add a little bit more hot. Alright, and that's really all we've got. Now I'm going to put it in here, and then I'm going to let it mix with the flour and the yeast, so a little bit of noise. I'm going to pour this in. Okay, you can see the dough is pretty sticky, so I'm going to let it knead in here for a while. You can do it by hand, which is what I did with my last loaf, but I'm going to see how it turns out when I let it knead by the mixer. So I'm going to let it knead for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll check it. Okay, now this has been kneading for about 10 minutes, so I'm going to take this out, and you can see it's nice and smooth. Still a little bit sticky, but I'm still going to try it. And all we have to do now is just let it sit because it's warm. And we're going to let the dough rise and see what happens. And you can see what a beautiful golden color this turns out as it's made up. So I'm just going to take a towel because that helps to keep the heat in, and just cover it and set it in the corner. Now, while that's rising, I want to show you back over here. The chicken is almost done. In fact, I think it is done. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off for a minute. Now, these are the vegetables. I've added a few things. You can see what a beautiful color it is, how they're all basically the same size. And I'm going to let this cook in here for, again, maybe 15-20 minutes until the vegetables get soft. I've added a little bit of water to it, and that will eventually go into my gravy. So, and plus the vegetables make a little bit of water themselves, but they're kind of dry. Carrots and celery are kind of dry, and turnips. And like I said, you can add others if you like. So while that's cooking, we'll move on with the next step. I'm going to take the chicken now and put this into my 9x12 pan. And you can see there's a little bit of broth in there. In fact, I may reserve that for the gravy. This in here, and I can spread that around because when my vegetables are done, those are the next thing that are going on top. In fact, I think I'm just going to leave that little bit in there. Let's see, let me put it into a different cup. Let me see. A second. Okay, let's just put the broth in here for now. Now the next step is the gravy. So what I do is I take a half a stick of butter, which is about 4 tablespoons roughly, and I'm going to melt that. Now I'm going to show you how to make a roux, R-O-U-X, and that is thickening. For whatever it is you want to thicken, you can use this for your base of any gravy actually. First of all, you need to melt your fat. In this case, we're using the cow butter. And get my flour ready. Here I'm going to use the Einkorn flour. You can use any kind of flour you want. I've done it with the buckwheat flour. And in the meantime, I want you to notice here I have some chicken broth that I've taken out from my freezer, and I'm melting that because I'm going to use that as the basis for my gravy. Now I realize that not everybody's going to be making their own broth, and sometimes if I run short, what I will do is get a box of organic broth from the store, and I'll use that. I did try some granulated, which I thought was chicken broth, and it turns out it was vegetarian chicken flavored broth, so you have to be really careful. It was organic, and that's what I thought I was getting, but it wasn't what I thought I was getting, so be sure and read those labels. I was sloppy and I wound up having to throw that away, which I don't like to do. So in the meantime, I have my broth melting. That was in my freezer. Okay, so now it's bubbling. Once it starts bubbling, then I add 3 to 4 tablespoons of flour. Now you sprinkle it around, and you have to do it, your thickener, you have to make however much thickener you want in the beginning. It's really hard to change your mind, because if you change your mind, then you get lumpy gravy. And sometimes that's not too pleasant. As I said, I've done it all. You can see how it's nice and brown and it's bubbling, and once that happens, then I'm just going to take from my broth here, and you start adding your broth in, and it's going to bubble and get hot and thicken as you go. And I usually add in enough to make about a half a pan. How many cups that is, I cannot tell you. Just let it keep bubbling and it will thicken. And if you want a thicker gravy, you just use, in the beginning, you use more of the flour. You could use 4 or 5 tablespoons if you want, but I do kind of a medium gravy. Just let it get back up to boiling here. And it will continue to thicken. You could also use white wine in a chicken broth, which would be very nice. Or chicken gravy. You can use turkey broth. And you can make a turkey pot pie. Or you could use chopped up roast beef and use or buffalo and use make a different kind of a pie. So again, it just kind of depends on what your goals are and what you like. I'm going to keep checking my vegetables. You can see it's simmering nicely. Vegetables are starting to change color. They're starting to get a little bit soft. This is where I want them to be. Okay, this continues to thicken and get bubbly on me, so I'll just keep adding to it. For me, as I said, I like about a half a pan of gravy, and it depends on how much gravy you like on your pie, you know, so everything is so subjective when you cook. I've heard people say they're afraid of cooking, but don't be afraid, because there are some things, in as many years as I've cooked, sometimes they turn out good, sometimes they don't, sometimes they turn out like I expected, sometimes they don't. I don't really have a lot of expectations. As long as I have good ingredients, usually there's something that you can do with them. And then I'm going to add, for this I use my table salt, probably around a half a teaspoon. And again, season to taste. I like to put pepper in, probably again about a half a teaspoon or so. And I like to add some organic onion powder. You can always add organic garlic powder to it as well. And you should put in about a tablespoon or 2. That also helps to thicken your gravy. So it's going to absorb a little bit. And sometimes if I add I add poultry type seasonings, tarragon, rosemary, thyme, those kind of seasonings you can add as well, depending upon what you like in your chicken pot pie. Okay, you can see it's coming along nicely. As I said, it's not a thick gravy, it's a medium kind, but it's thickening as it goes. Let that sit for a minute, simmer, and check my vegetables, which are coming along. And while that's happening, we're going to move down and get, let me add this in too, almost forgot the chicken broth that we had set aside. Put that in. Okay, well, I want to get this pan ready for my bread, because after this, the bread sits for about 45 minutes to an hour. It's going to need to go into the bread pan. This is the easiest way I have found so far to get bread out of the pan. So I just take a piece of wax paper and I put it in the bottom, and I'm going to spray it with a little bit of organic olive oil pan, just to keep it from sticking to the wax paper. Try not to do the sides, because if you do the sides, things won't rise up. It's too slick for it. So anyway, try and just do the bottom as best you can. So this pan will be ready whenever the bread is ready. So just set that aside. Oh, I'm going to chop this down a little bit, because otherwise it might burn on the burner, or when it's in the oven, I should say. And you don't have to line it, but for me it just makes the cleanup a little easier. Let's go back and see how our gravy's doing. Okay, gravy's doing great. Again, you can see how nicely that's thickening. I've got that turned off. This is just about ready to go over the chicken, and I'm most likely going to have extra, which, as I said, I'll put in a container, I'll put in the freezer. And then after I make 2 or 3 pot pies, after a while I've got extra vegetables, and I can do a pie without having to do all the chopping because I have enough ready for me. Okay, stop. All right, now these vegetables are looking good, the gravy's looking good. So the next thing I'm going to do is just put the vegetables over the meat. And actually I need to start my oven because I'm going to bake it here in a minute. So I bake it at 425 for about 25 minutes. And I'll remind you again when we put that in, but I want to get that going. Okay, so make a nice layer over the top. And like I said, I'm going to have plenty of vegetables left, which is just fine with me. I already have one bag. I make a chicken pot pie right now about once a week so they can have it in the mornings before they go to school. So while other kids are having Pop-Tarts, my children are enjoying homemade chicken pot pie, and I know that they have good nutrition in their system and helps them, of course, do well in school. Now once I have this done, I have organic peas, and I usually put these on frozen because the more time you cook peas, the darker they get, because they're already, remember, semi-cooked anyway. Even if I put them on a salad or I add them to a dish, I put them on last and let the heat from the other food thaw them. However, this is going to be cooked because of the biscuit topping. And from here, I pour my gravy on. Okay, so we're going to pour this on top, and so this should fill your pan roughly about half full. Now from there I stir it up a little bit. And gently mix everything together. And our final step, remember, I drop biscuit topping. After it sits for a while, you can see it's already starting to raise a little bit. And stir it down. And you just put that over the top, spread it out. You can make more if you want and make it thicker, but it pretty well will fill up your pan after it's cooked. And like I said, if you don't want to make your chicken pot pie, you can just turn this into biscuits. Okay, just about got everything spread over. And my oven's not quite warm, but as soon as it's warm again, I'm going to bake it at 425 for roughly around 25 minutes. Everything inside the pie is done but the topping. And I have found out for warming it up, because this is what I do, I keep it through the week. I cut it into about 8 or 10 pieces, and that gives them 4 to 5 days of food during the week. And what I do every day is I just take out a piece and put it on another pan, put it in about 350 and warm it up. And as I said, they have a great breakfast. So this is breakfast food for us, but for a lot of people it's going to be dinner, lunch, and it does take a bit of time. It's not difficult, but it does take some time. So you just kind of want to plan things as you go. And as soon as my oven is done, I'm going to put it in, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. 425 for approximately 25 minutes. There we go. Set my timer and we'll check back. Okay, this looks like this is good and done. This is nice and bubbly. You can see how beautiful the crust is. Very hot, but so I will let it cool, and then it goes into the refrigerator, as I said, because we're going to eat it. My boys will for breakfast. But anyway, it's a beautiful chicken pot pie. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it because it is fabulous. Now, on over here, remember the bread that we have rising. I'm going to take that out for its second rise and put it into the bread pan. Now you can see, if you make bread, this is not an ordinary type of dough. It's a little stickier, and from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to rise in the same way. I've tried several different bread recipes. This last one I did is one that my family said they actually liked the best. So I don't know if it will rise again or not. But even if it doesn't, flavor is excellent. And it has to sit for about another 30 minutes covered. And then we'll see what happens. And it could be it needs a little bit more liquid to it. I'm not sure. As I said, I've made several different varieties of breads. And this is the one I'm making for you today. So let's see what happens in about another 30 minutes or so. Okay, I want you to take a look now. This has risen a little bit. I don't know what it will do in the oven, if it will rise anymore, but we'll see what happens. So, we're going to bake it on 375. I'm going to try it about 20 minutes, actually 25. Alright, let's check and see how the bread is. It's 25 minutes. Oh, it looks beautiful. Has a nice hollow sound to it. Be careful not to burn yourself. You should be able to lift it out with the wax paper. Peel it down. Now, it did not rise a lot, so I'll have to keep at it. Let's take a look. You can see what a beautiful color that is. Let's see what it looks like inside. Nice. You can see the steam. See what a beautiful golden color it is. And you want to remember that if you eat whole foods, you're going to have a whole mind. So if we extrapolate that, think about if you eat whole or ancient food, you are going to open up ancient memories. So with that said, you might want to look into getting some einkorn or some older foods and seeing what's going on. And I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. It was a little lengthy, but I think it's worth it. You'll definitely want to try some einkorn in your diet, and it's as easy as making it into cereal. The chicken pot pie is really a nice hearty meal for the wintertime months when you need a little bit more stick to your ribs type of things. So I appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to working with you some more because I have other interesting and exciting recipes to share. Take care. Bye-bye for now. This is Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow for Expansions.com.